Hi, this is Jenny. In this model, we will be learning about sensory voiders, who fall into another one of the four sensory quadrants. So we've reviewed sensory seekers, individuals with high sensory thresholds and high behavioral response to sensory stimuli. Now let's talk about what a sensory avoider may look like. It is important to remember, as we go through this module, that someone can be considered a sensory avoider in one, multiple, or all of their senses, depending on their preferences. So what does it mean to be a sensory avoider? An individual with sensory avoiding preferences demonstrates a low threshold for sensory stimulation, but demonstrates a high behavioral response. Let's go back to our example with the milk jug. This person is represented by the pint of milk in the example from Module 1. This person only requires a small amount of sensory stimulation to reach their threshold, and will actively try to avoid further sensation. In the coming slides, we will look further into how a sensory avoider may present as CCW in each sense. Someone who has sensory avoiding preferences for touch may demonstrate some of the following signs. They may avoid hugging or giving handshakes. They may prefer to use art materials that are less messy, such as colored pencils rather than paints. And they may dislike being in crowded areas where others may accidentally brush up against them. You may notice that these individuals become avoidant or wearing tight clothes or a heavy jacket in the wintertime. Furthermore, they may become stressed or overwhelmed when asked to participate in activities that require a lot of touch, such as gardening on a field trip, where they are required to use various tools, touch the soil when kneeling on the ground, and use their hands to pick up flowers. It is important to remember that touch can be anything. For example, sitting in the chair, holding a pen, or any interaction with surfaces or objects throughout the day. Because of their low thresholds, individuals that become overwhelmed by sounds may demonstrate some of the following behaviors. They may react by covering their ears and show agitation in the presence of less preferred sounds. These individuals may also remove themselves from overstimulating environments, like the music room or workshop. In addition, you may notice these individuals recognize quiet or small noises before others do. Their sound threshold is met more quickly than others. For example, at CCW, you may observe these individuals to become distracted by the noise or trains or cars passing by, when majority of the room may not notice them at all. They may also avoid joining large group activities and prefer to work alone or in a quieter environment. Individuals who avoid vestibular stimulations are much more sensitive to movements than others. What may feel like a slow or gentle movement to most may feel overwhelming to these individuals. For example, the action of turning around may feel like that they just spun in 10 circles, and the action of leaning forward may feel like if they are falling to the ground. Those who avoid vestibular input may choose not to participate in activities that require a lot of movement, such as taking field trips, working in the woodshop, or participating in the kitchen. They may choose seated tabletop activities in order to avoid the feeling of movement. They may also prefer to sit in a chair that is stationary rather than the ones that swivel or rolls. Someone who avoids proprioceptive input might be hesitant or choose not to participate in activities that require pushing or pulling, such as screen printing or woodworking. They may also avoid things with resistive properties like rubber bands, silly putty, or even mixing thick batter or dough in the kitchen. Since vestibular and proprioception are closely linked, they may also avoid excessive movement or exercise. It's important to consider all of the joints in the body when thinking of proprioception. We often forget about joints like the jaw. Someone who is avoidant might avoid foods that are chewy or extra crunchy, since these provide more proprioceptive input. Someone who is sensory avoiding to visual stimulation might find bright, flickering, or fluorescent lights to be overwhelming. Sensory avoiders may benefit from wearing sunglasses in a bright room, if the lights cannot be dimmed. Environments with busy colors, many objects, or crowded spaces may be overwhelming. They may choose to use duller colors, such as neutrals or blues, instead of bright reds, oranges, or yellows in their artwork. Someone who has an avoiding preference for smell might prefer not to work in environments where there are strong odors, such as the woodshop, screen printing room, or in the kitchen. They may also avoid using specific mediums that have strong smells, like acrylic paint or wood stain. Sensory avoiders might dislike being around people who wear strong-smelling deodorant or perfumes. These smells might seem mild to most people, but overbearing to sensory avoidant individuals. With this new knowledge, let's break down how you can help sensory avoiders at CCW. For those who avoid touch, it's helpful to leave room for them to stand throughout the day and allow them to respectfully decline handshakes or hugs. They might benefit from being provided with any type of barrier between their skin and a specific texture that they dislike, such as using gloves during painting. It might also be helpful to offer a seat cushion or a softer chair for them to use during the day. For participants who avoid sound at CCW, it's important to offer them the opportunity to sit further away from noisier areas in the building, like the music room or the woodshop. It's also helpful to provide headphones so these individuals don't become overwhelmed by the sounds around them. For those who avoid vestibular input, it might be helpful to be sensitive around the topic of taking trips. These individuals might avoid going on trips altogether or become extremely stressed by the thought of moving around. They may simply prefer trips that require less motion, like going to the library instead of chair yoga. They may also benefit from sitting in the front seat on the way there. Outside of trips, vestibular avoiders may be fearful of joining activities that require a lot of movement, such as woodshop, so it is important to provide options that include minimal movement. Proprioception avoiders might find the pushing and pulling sensation of woodshop, screen printing, or cooking to be overbearing. It's helpful to allow these participants a choice of whether they would like to opt out of activities like these. This group of avoiders may also benefit from staff suggestions regarding the provision of softer foods or snack and lunch, as crunchy foods provide added proprioceptive input to the job. Individuals who are visual avoiders react negatively to bright lights, vivid colors, and crowded spaces. You may help by providing visual avoiders with sunglasses or place shades over fluorescent bulbs to prevent excess exposure from bright lights. You may also help by relocating them to a space that is organized or has an open floor plan, with the least amount of visual distractions possible. Finally, for individuals who avoid smells, it may be necessary to limit their time around strong-smelling materials, as these can become overwhelming. Some examples of strong smells are wood-burning activities, wood stains, smells in the kitchen, odorous paints, and the smell emitted when drying screen print inks. Thank you for listening to Module 3. Next, we will talk about Module 4 for low registration.